I'm not scared of a housewife who has no job and no family like you. That's right, you're just trash, and trash doesn't matter. I get how you feel now. I'm leaving this house. Well, now you're homeless. Good luck with that, homeless lady. This is a good chance for Frank to move out. Let's get everything sorted. Take out the trash and clean up. They went to Frank's room and told him to pack his things and leave. I was planning to leave, but I never expected that even Frank would be kicked out too. My name is Amber. I'm 27 years old and a housewife. I recently married a man named Tom. He's 30, so he's 3 years older than me. At first, I thought he was mature and calm, like an older man should be. Since he often talked about his mother, I thought he was a good person who cared about his family. But after we got married, I found out what he was really like. On our wedding day, my mother-in-law was very kind to me. I thought we'd have a happy marriage. When we got married, Tom asked me to move in with his mother because his father had passed away a few years ago. He wanted to be close to her. I thought his mother was trustworthy, so I agreed to live with her. But as soon as we got married, both my mother-in-law and my husband changed. My mother-in-law started bossing me around, shouting things like, "Hey Amber, hurry up and bring me tea, and clean the bathroom and toilet." I didn't know if she was trying to scare me or if it was just because of her age. She would call me loudly and make me do all sorts of chores. What shocked me the most was discovering a roommate I had never heard about before. One morning, I was stunned to find a man I didn't recognize in the kitchen. I was so surprised and just stared at him. When he saw me, he introduced himself as, "I'm Frank, Tom's younger brother." I had never been told that Tom had a brother or that we had a roommate, so I was really surprised. Frank is 27, the same age as me. I asked my mother-in-law to introduce me to him. She said, "Oh, you mean Frank? Don't worry about him. He's just a recluse." I was shocked. How could she be so indifferent about her own son? She continued, "Your son is a recluse. I'm only happy with Tom. Frank is just a useless hermit. He only goes out for shopping and stays home the rest of the time." I was really shocked and disappointed by what she said. It was hard to believe that my mother-in-law changed so quickly after we got married. It's upsetting that she discriminates against her own son. Since I'm an only child, I didn't have any siblings to compare this to. I'd be devastated if my own mother treated me like that or ignored me. My parents have passed away. I envy those who still have their parents around. I wish that at least parents and children could get along well. I asked my husband about Frank when he got home from work. I thought brothers might get along, but my husband's response was cold. He said, "Just ignore him. He won't bother you." He dismissed the issue. It felt like he just forgot to mention Frank, and it was disheartening. Calling his own brother a ghost was awful. My husband didn't seem to care about family memories. He was just overly attached to his mother. After finishing my chores for the day, I went upstairs feeling regret about this marriage. Then I ran into Frank, who was heading to the bathroom. "You married my brother, didn't you?" Frank asked. "Yes, why?" "I'm sorry, it's nothing, but I won't say anything bad." "You should leave," he replied. "What?" "I'm sorry, but you should get a divorce." I felt a bit hurt and confused. I was shocked by how my husband and mother-in-law were acting. I married my husband because I loved him, so it's hard to believe he asked me to end our marriage after just one day. "It's none of your business. I can handle it. I'm a competitive person." "I'm sorry for saying that," Frank replied. "And I'm also sorry for my outbursts," he said, bowing his head. I thought Frank seemed pretty strange. Until recently, I hadn't realized why my mother-in-law and I felt uneasy. He apologized so politely that I wasn't sure if he was sincere or just trying to warn me. As I was thinking about it, Frank said, "Excuse me," and went into his room. Even though my mother-in-law and husband think Frank is a reclusive weirdo, he seemed like a decent person to me. Maybe he just needs to be treated with proper courtesy. The next morning, while I was setting the table for breakfast, Frank came downstairs and wanted a drink. I said, "Good morning, Frank. Why don't you join us for breakfast?" "Good morning, Amber." "Thanks for inviting me," Frank replied, and he sat down. "Amber, I'm not going to eat breakfast with that person. Just finish making the breakfast," my mother-in-law shouted at me. Frank quickly got up and went back to his room. I wanted to apologize for my strong reaction the day before, but I wasn't sure how to fix things. My mother-in-law told me, "All you need to do is housework. Don't do anything extra, okay?" She gave me a harsh look. I was shocked by her tone, especially since I was the bride-to-be. My husband's attitude toward me had changed a lot. What's going on? Today's menu is curry. You should have told me earlier. I had curry for lunch too. What's wrong with that? Why didn't he call me and let me know he had curry for lunch and wanted something else? My husband kept yelling, and I stayed silent. Hey, you're not apologizing. Who do you think you are? You're here to do housework. Remember that. I was stunned and stayed silent. It felt like Tom didn't love me. He just wanted a housekeeper. It was awful. How could he be so calm while treating me like this? They didn't care about me. They only wanted to make their lives easier. They were using me. Seeing them laughing and watching TV in the living room, I went upstairs. Once I was alone, I started crying. Then Frank appeared and offered me a handkerchief. I'm so sorry, he said gently. I quickly wiped my tears. Sorry for using your handkerchief. No, I gave it to you because I wanted you to use it. I heard what my brother and mother said. I knew it. They're the worst. When my brother-in-law said he knew it, I asked him what he meant. He explained that he had been in a similar situation before. My husband had promised to marry someone else. But because my mother-in-law and husband treated her the same way they're treating me now, she ran away just before the wedding. Hearing that made me feel a bit better. It meant that the way they're treating me isn't unusual for them. It's a pattern. I felt hopeless though. How could I have trusted this? But I had nowhere to go if my husband kicked me out. As a housewife, I wasn't allowed to get a part-time job, and I couldn't afford to move out on my own. I didn't know what to do and ended up crying. Then Frank said, if we keep talking here, it might look suspicious. Let's talk at a coffee shop next time, if you'd like. He gave me a piece of paper with his line ID on it. I nodded and went to my bedroom. I decided it was time to leave the house. My plan for survival was just beginning. I decided to visit the city office for some important matters and stop by the supermarket on my way home. I told my mother-in-law I was leaving and walked out of the house. I won't forgive you if you leave any chores undone, my mother-in-law said. When she saw that I had made sure everything was perfect, she grumbled that she wouldn't accept it if I was late for dinner. I pretended to agree and went to the coffee shop where Frank and I were supposed to meet. At the coffee shop, I told Frank that my parents were gone and I couldn't rely on them for support anymore. I'd also mentioned that I had canceled my rental house and quit my job. I explained that I would have to start everything over from scratch. It's hard to move out of the house under these conditions, isn't it? The biggest challenge is dealing with work. It feels like you're being controlled by your mother and husband all day. Frank then asked, Amber, can you draw? Huh? What do you mean? Well, can you? Yes. I went to art school before. Really? That's great. Yes, but how? Just in time. Another manga artist is looking for an assistant and you can work remotely. But I don't have a computer right now. I'll lend you mine since I'm not using it. Really? Thank you so much. But why do you have an extra computer? What do you do for a living? That's very kind of you to ask. You don't think I'm just a recluse, do you? No, not at all. You're very polite and well-groomed, so I don't think that. You work from home, don't you? Yes, I'm an engineer. An engineer? Yes. I used to work for a company, but now I have my own business. Wow, I didn't know that. I didn't realize you owned a business. Yes, it's easier for me to run my own company because I make the decisions. We also have web designers who work for us. Since we're a small team, we all work remotely from home. That must be why you're always at home. But your mother and Tom said you're just at home doing nothing. You haven't told them the truth. I don't see any point in telling them. True, but if you're such a good manager, why don't you go out more? It's because I first learned about Frank's thoughts here. He said, that's not about me. I need to introduce you to the manga artist. Frank quickly made a call, and soon we set up a remote interview. I was scheduled to talk with a manga artist on Wednesday. My mother-in-law usually had lessons and would go out afterward, so I could do the remote interview then. I made a good impression during the interview and was hired right away. They said they would mail the hiring documents to Frank. So for the job, everything was set. Next, we needed to find a new place. Frank said, I have a friend who works at a real estate agency and can get you a good deal. Who is this friend? He has lots of connections. We found a new place that met my needs and signed a contract. Just when everything seemed to be going well, I had an argument with my husband one night. "Hey, where's dinner?" My husband asked when he woke me up from sleep. He was a bit drunk, like he had just come home from drinking. "Dinner? It's midnight. You said you weren't hungry because you were going out for drinks." "Shut up. The king is home, and you don't even greet me. Now you say you won't cook. You're a bad wife. Useless." His words made me furious. "What? Do you have any idea how hard I've been working with your mother for you? How can you act so superior? That's because you're my wife. You should support me and take care of the house. If you can't do your chores, don't argue with me. A wife who can't handle housework is like trash." As he said this, the door opened and my mother-in-law came in. "You're like trash. Frank is trash too, and this place is a mess," my husband said, sneering. "Yes, let's go. I need to deal with our trash." "What did you just say?" I asked. He opened a drawer and showed me a divorce paper. "You're no good to me anymore. I'm going to find another wife who can do your job. I'm divorcing you. Get out of my house. You think of your wife as just a servant. Don't worry about what you've said. I hope you regret it someday." "What are you talking about? I'm not scared of threats from a housewife with no job and no family like you." My husband left and my mother-in-law laughed. "That's so true. You can't do anything about it because you're just garbage." "Well, I understand how you feel now. I'm moving out of this house," I said as I signed the divorce papers and left. I put the papers in my bag and started packing my things. My mother-in-law and husband watched me with grins on their faces. "Now you're homeless. What are you going to do now?" "Well, that's none of our business. Good luck with that, homeless lady. Oh, and Frank should get out of here too." "Yeah, let's clear the place out. After we get rid of him, we'll tear down this wall, remove it, and connect it to my place. It'll be much bigger and more comfortable." My husband and mother-in-law were already planning what to do next. They went to Frank's room and told him to pack up and leave. I was going to leave anyway, but I never expected Frank would be kicked out too. I regretted letting my emotions get the best of me and having that fight. "I'm sorry, Frank. It's my fault." "No, don't worry. I've realized I can't live with those people anymore. Plus, I've got something new I'm excited about." "Maybe that fight was a blessing in disguise," Frank said with a smile. I was relieved he wasn't upset about leaving. 2 days later, on Wednesday, when my mother-in-law was out of town, Frank and I called a moving company and moved out. "You finished moving?" My mother-in-law called my new place. "Don't worry, we've already left." "Frank moved with you, right?" "Yes, we moved out together." "I'm glad I don't have to see you two anymore," my mother-in-law said, ending the call cheerfully. What she didn't know was that Frank and I were planning our revenge. I had just moved into our rented house and was starting fresh. Thanks to Frank, I received a substantial amount from my husband in the divorce. Frank had secretly recorded my husband and mother-in-law's harsh comments during our fight. These comments were considered harassment, so the divorce was ruled to be due to their actions. As a result, I was awarded a large alimony payment, which was my first taste of revenge. Frank's lawyer friend handled the alimony case for me. My husband was shocked and agreed to the payment. I was grateful for Frank's help, even though I still wondered who his lawyer friend was. A few days later, my ex-mother-in-law called me several times, like a persistent demon. I thought I had forgotten to block her number, so I answered. "Amber, where are you?" "I'm not telling you. I'm a stranger now." "Please don't say that. I'm calling because..." Where's Frank?" "Huh? Why are you asking about Frank?" "I'm trying to find him but can't reach him." "That's too bad. Maybe he doesn't want to see you anymore," I taunted her. The tone changed. "Don't be silly. You moved out together. You must know where he is. A bunch of jerks." "I know where he is, but I won't tell you. Look for him yourself." "Where are you anyway? You have no home, no job, no place to live. If you beg me, I might let you come back, but you'd have to be my housekeeper." "I'm not coming back. I have a job and a place to live now. I don't need to come back to you." "That's a lie." My ex-husband was surprised that I had moved on so quickly. "Well, I don't mean to correct him. Please don't call me again. If you do, I'll call the police." "Wait a minute." I ended the call and blocked my mother-in-law's number. I had already blocked my ex-husband's number. They were panicking because they had just realized the truth. They mistakenly thought my father-in-law left them a lot of money. but it was actually Frank who had been sending money to their account every month. My mother-in-law thought Frank was a recluse and unemployed, not knowing he was secretly providing for them. When Frank was kicked out, he stopped the money transfers. They must have realized who had been supporting them. But it was too late. Frank had already cut ties with his mother and brother. My ex-husband had no money to pay the alimony, and my ex-mother-in-law relied on the money Frank used to send. Without it, she was in trouble. They got what they deserved, and I felt no sympathy for them. By the way, Frank bought a luxury flat in Tokyo and is living comfortably. He kept his promise to his father, who loved him despite the cruelty from his mother and brother. Frank supported them secretly to fulfill his father's wish. The two who kicked out such a kind-hearted person are the worst. I met Frank once after we moved out. He said he made a promise to his father, and I agreed. I hope he finds happiness. I was grateful for Frank's support, and he's an important person in my life. A year later he proposed to me, but that's another story. It's surprising how someone can change so much after marriage. It's like a marriage scam. I'm glad to be married to a reliable person now. Despite the challenges, I'm happy with how things turned out. Thank you for watching until the end. Please subscribe to our channel if you liked it.